Hello, adventurer. It's good to see you. You have made it to the morning grind.
Welcome, welcome.
It's the live stream at the beginning of the Geekverse, where we talk about all types of topics in geekdom, gaming, and fantasy, with an emphasis on being constructive and creating the things that we want to exist in the world.
It's all on the grind, Sizemore. Can't be too fine, can't be too coarse.
That's exactly right. There are a lot of adventures to be had today. Dungeons to explore and monsters to slay, and who knows what a random encounter might send our way. That's why we have to prepare, so settle in now for the morning grind with your favorite beverage in hand.
Tea? Or maybe something a little stronger. I've got a few bottles of the old Wynyard left.
Whatever you want. Pull up a chair.
Dude.
If you're feeling fancy, how about a cappuccino? Or a frappuccino? Or how about an espresso?
Just tea, thank you.
Sounds good to me, Gandalf. Whatever you want. I'm just glad you're here.
Everyone is welcome. You can just watch if you want. You don't have to worship anything you don't want to worship.
Thank you, Mike. But be forewarned.
Sometimes we get really strange characters around here.
Wait, what's that you say? Why can't you come and be a part of the stream?
My wife would disown me.
Oh no, I bet she'll be fine with it. Come on in.
Am I scared for my safety? No.
What are we supposed to do?
Everybody do the secret handshake.
Secret cultist handshake.
Oh, now do wizards who love each other.
This, my friend, is a science.
I still don't have gifts, but it's fine.
It's all on the grind, son. Can't be too fine, can't be too coarse.
Dude, this would be a sick place to bring the band.
Indeed it would be, Dave. It really would. I'm seeing more people coming in. Welcome, glad to have you here. Oh look, here's someone new.
Is this the cultist meetup?
Yes it is.
Come to hang out? Please accept me. I have nothing else.
Okay, we accept you. Everyone's welcome here.
Brought some snacks.
Well, that makes things even better.
You want some coffee? I don't drink coffee. You sure?
It's cultist coffee.
What makes it cultist coffee? I'm a cultist and I'm drinking it. Oh. Then I'll have some.
What exactly is going on here?
I'm seeing more people coming in. Welcome. It's so great to have you. Oh, and look, here comes another stranger.
Can we help you?
Yes, fellow cultists. I could really use some food.
Oh yeah? Welcome. We have donuts.
Oh, it's me. I'm glad I'm here. I'm sure you have a few questions for me, though.
What's your name? Who do you work for? What god do you worship?
Great questions, Rob.
I'm Steve King, and I worship Nyarlathotep.
No, not really. I'm just Heath, and I won't be worshiping anything this morning. But I will be your host. Welcome to the office. We're going to have a great time. I've got my coffee ready, because now it's time for the morning grind.
If you could become a fish, that would be amazing. Then I could command you with my mental fish powers.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Good morning. It is so good to see you, to be back here in the office, here for the morning grind. Hope everyone is doing very well. I am. Good morning. So we got Stray here. Stray says, good morning, everyone. How are you feeling? I'm feeling much better. I was feeling, I ate some weird stuff yesterday or the day before, and I wasn't feeling all that great yesterday morning, and so I just called it and basically just took the day off. So I'm feeling much better now. So good morning, James. Good morning, Zero the Blade. And we got Lynn here. So good morning, everyone. Sable Phoenix is here with donuts. So yes. So, and actually things have been pretty good except for that yesterday briefly, but things went well. I had a exceptional meeting about the Tales of Rabavania. That was 2 days ago now. So I guess 2 days ago now, because I didn't get to talk about it yesterday. I had an exceptional meeting about the Tales of Rabavania. Actually, 2 meetings about the Tales of Rabavania 2 days ago. I spoke to Cameron because I've been trying to get the first 10 pages of Rabavania ready, because Cameron talks about how important the first 10 pages are. And I had expected to be able to be much further with like a script by now for Rabavania than I actually am. Because if you knew, I think I'd mentioned I had been writing a script for it. Because this is the suck part about that is I can't share it. It's like the RPG stuff I can share, but I've been working a lot. Most of my writing time had gone over the past, well, a little bit toward writing the script because I was trying to get it done, and I was or trying to even get it started. You know, I had come up with the whole beat sheet for the entire movie, and then I had come up with the first 10 pages, and I had spoken with Cameron about it, and I decided that it was just terrible. And so about 2 months ago, I just scrapped that entire thing. And so then I started working again. I've got a completely new direction now, and it is a quantum leap. That's Cameron's words, a quantum leap better than what I had before. So I was feeling really good about that. So had a great meeting on that. Got notes on it, of course. So got to do some rewriting and stuff like that and applying notes. But man, yes, I knew that what I had is much better than what I have now is much better than what I had. So that was going very well. I'm excited about that, and I'm excited about doing some new Rabavania projects. And I'm hoping I want to talk about Theophany. Maybe next week we can get back on some rules on Tuesdays and world design on Wednesday, or maybe world design on both. We'll just have to see, because I also want to work on some Theophany, which is the story about the fall of Lucifer. And I'd like to be able to bring something out with that. I've got material that's been made for that, but never released. And so I'm wondering if I can release that this year as well. Thank you. There's the link for the Discord server. Please do join us. I was, last night I was going through the Discord server and I was catching up on everything that was there. So that's what's going on with me. This one has been, I don't know anything about this one. This one was just recommended to me a while ago by the members of the community. And so I thought, okay, well, let's take a look at By This Axe I Hack. Lots of different kinds of hacks. We've looked at black hack, white hack. This is By This Axe I Hack. There's another one that's black sword hack. I did rewrite, my handwriting looks terrible on this, so I'm probably going to rewrite it again. But I did rewrite my list of RPG or list of games in general that are still to be examined. And, you know, there aren't that many left on here. Now, that doesn't mean we're not going to find some more, because also some new are released and things like that. And we'll take a look at things as they're released too. But, you know, we've been through a lot of stuff. Maybe there's still some stuff that has been out there that we have not looked at. For instance, we have not really gone through. I'm going to put Rollmaster on this, because we've talked about that. We've never actually looked at Rollmaster. And I mean, there's still, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. There's still 20 on this list. So it's not like we're running out right now. But on the whole, we've been through a lot. So I wonder what's going to happen once we get through a lot of these RPGs. And then I have some just tabletop games as well. Battle system, like more skirmish or battle-oriented games that I want to look at as well. But we want to use some of this information that we have gained about RPGs, I think. We'll just have to see how we evolve, I think. So By This Axe I Hack, this is built off of Black Hack. Okay, we've looked at Black Hack, and I remember enjoying Black Hack. I thought about that one quite a bit. I remember I don't remember as much about it now, but I remember going after we went through it. It does have the usage dice, which I'm a bit skeptical on usage dice. But there was also, I believe there was armor degradation in it. I think there were some things that I did like about Black Hack. So this is By This Axe I Hack. So this is built off of Black Hack. So that's good. There should be Whack Hack, the guide to criticals and mortal wounds. Maybe we could do those with cards. All right, let's see what this is. A sword and sorcery role-playing game made using the Black Hack. Okay. And when I downloaded this, it came with a white and a black cover, and I don't think there was a difference between the two. It didn't tell me a difference between the two other than black and white cover. So maybe this one is the black cover. Perhaps if it were being print on demand or something like that. But if you're printing at home, maybe it gave you the white cover so that you don't have to use so much ink or something like that. So, all right. So by this axe I hack, welcome to a world of sword and sorcery. Before the dawn of recorded history, our world was a primeval landscape dotted with pockets of civilization. Civilization, kingdom, nations, and city-states surrounded by a vast and unforgiving wilderness, teeming with danger and littered with the fallen ruins of an ancient empire, of mighty sorcerer lords, and the remnants of older, darker civilizations. Based on David Black's game-changing The Black Hack, By This Axe I Hack takes its cues from Robert E. Howard's Conan the Barbarian and Cull of Atlantis. Thomas Morris, Roy Thomas and Barry Windsor Smith's Red Sonja, Michael Moorcock's Elric of Mellenborn, and Fritz Leibner's Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser. By This Axe I Hack includes 18 unique character classes. Oh, that's interesting. 6 warriors, 6 rogues, and 6 magicians. A magic system with 120 spells tailored to the sword and sorcery genre. Over 70 special features to customize your characters. Rules for modifying existing character classes or creating your own. A huge assortment of men and monsters to throw at your players. A number of optional rules to help you fine-tune the game to exactly your liking. And a variety of random tables to help game masters create their own lost age. 13th Age, Microscope, and its associated games by a lame mage. I'd recommend some really obscure ones like Transit, which is powered by the Apocalypse, Lacuna, The Creation of the Mystery, and The Girl from Blue City. Both 13th Age, 13th Age right there. 13th Age and the Microscope are on here. And some of Ron Edwards' title like Sorcerer, Trollbane, and City of Hands. Let's not forget other narrative-heavy games like Dogs in the Vineyard. Dogs in the Vineyard has come up before. So Dogs in the Vineyard, that one's also on this list. Life with My Master. This is the first time several of these have come up. Eric of Melnibone. Okay. And Fafhrd. Thank you. Sable always right there with pronunciations. Okay, let's take a look at a character sheet. If there is one. Maybe at the back. Let's see if there's a character sheet at the back. Yes, there is. So by this axe I hack, we've got name, class, level, hit die, flaw, strength, intelligence, dex, wisdom, con, charisma. So we've got our classic D&D stats here. Hit points, attack damage, protection, special features and sorcery, inventory, appearance, backstory. So pretty basic. Portrait or symbol. So this is inspiration. All of our authors up here, but also Gary Gygax and David Arneson. And then based off of Black Hack. The Dark Sun, I thought that I sensed some Dark Sun part of this as well. So we went over Dark Sun quite a bit. Barbarians of Lemuria, basic fantasy role-playing game, The Black Sword Hack, and Extinction. Hercules and Xena role-playing game. Oh, I didn't know there was a Hercules and Xena role-playing game. Makes sense, though. Stars Without Number and Worlds Without Number. We've talked about that. That's come up before. All right. Well, table of contents. So what is this? So notice that's good. talking about our layout here. What exactly is this? The core mechanic. So, hey, this leads, exactly into the way that we like to take a look at this. What is this? What is the core mechanic? And how do you actually play this game? So that's coming up first. So we'll start that. Then characters, equipment, combat, adventuring, sorcery, the Lost Age, hacks. I guess there's like optional rules over here. By This Axe I Hack. What is this? By This Axe I Hack is a tabletop role-playing game inspired by classic pulp-era tales of sword and sorcery and their contemporary spin-offs. Based on David Black's game-changing The Black Hack, BTA takes its cues from Robert E. Howard's Conan the Barbarian and Call of Atlantis, Roy Thomas and Barry Windsor Smith's Red Sonja, Michael Moorcock's Elric of, how do we say this? Melniboni, and Fafford, and Fritz Leibner's Fafford and the Grey Mouser. So the core mechanic, whenever a player character or character tries to perform a tricky action, they test one of their stats. To successfully test a stat, the player must roll under the stat on a 20-sided die. Critical results are the exception. Rolling a 1 is a critical failure. Rolling a 20 is a critical success. When testing a stat of 15 or more, rolling a 10 is also a critical success. Okay, that's important to remember. When testing a stat of 10 or... Has anybody played this one in the chat? Has anyone played this one? When testing a stat of 15 or more, rolling a 10 is also a critical success. Critical results aren't relevant to every test, but game masters and players are encouraged to describe spectacular results when someone rolls a critical. Non-player characters usually don't make tests. When NPC opponents attack characters or act against them, characters test to avoid resisting their effects. Enemies may roll for damage, however. So this is largely player-facing here. Characters test to avoid or resist their effects. Enemies may roll for damage. Sable Phoenix says, Stars Without Numbers is free, isn't it? Or at least pay what you want? Or is it Worlds Without Number? I'm pretty sure one of them is. Maybe I should put that one on the list over here. Worlds, Stars. DCC has F and GM setting. Oh, yeah, we are. Yeah, that's a good thing to point out, too, here, Lynn. The roll under mechanic reminds me a lot of GURPS, but the D20 is going to make it a lot more swingy than the 3D6. The Black Hack, I was wondering, the Black Hack is OSR, and the original D&D was roll under 2. So to successfully test, we got to roll under. Well, so we got to roll under the stat, but rolling a 1 is a critical failure. Rolling 20 is a critical success. I should have called that out. I guess they just didn't want a 1 to be a critical success. Because in GURPS, when you roll low, your 1s at your 3s. When you roll a bunch of 1s. Like 3 and 4 is critical success. But I guess they didn't want that. They didn't want a 1 to be a critical success. They wanted to preserve the feeling of rolling a natural 20. So we're trying to roll under the stat on a 20-sided die, but 1 is a critical failure. 20 is a critical success. If the stat's 15 or more, and you're trying to roll under it, if you hit a 10, you also roll a critical failure, critical success. Advantage and disadvantage. If a character has advantage on a test or roll, they roll twice and use the better result. If a character has disadvantage on a test or roll, they roll twice and use the worst result. There's usually no difference between having advantage from one source or multiple sources. You either have it or you don't. The same applies to disadvantage. Advantage and disadvantage cancel each other out on a one-for-one basis. The GM can rule an action with disadvantage from 3 or more sources is effectively impossible. Powerful opponents. Tests are harder when acting against a powerful opponent. Characters suffer disadvantage on tests against enemies whose hit die exceeds their level by 2 or more. When dealing with especially difficult actions that don't involve an opponent, the GM can assign these actions an effective hit die rating representing their difficulty for the purposes of this rule. Okay, so that's interesting too. So instead of easy, medium, hard tasks and all of that, hit die ratings. That's all based on hit die ratings. And if the hit die rating exceeds your level by 2 or more, then you have disadvantage. Opposed tests. When handling characters versus character versus character conflict, both characters test to perform or resist the action. If one succeeds and the other fails, the winner has their way. If both fail, the action fails. If both succeed, the one who rolls higher has their way. If they roll the same number, the one with the higher stat wins. If the stats are the same, the GM decides what happens. You know, I don't know about, I was just thinking about this, Len, because to me, it's kind of odd. I mean, the 3d6 obviously generates this bell curve system in GURPS. But you're not adding a modifier in GURPS. You're always trying to roll under a target number, which most of the time is something that's on your character sheet. So I don't know. You know, the D20 is a lot like using a percentile die. We just go into, a percentile. It's just that we're going by increments of 5%, right? If you're trying to roll under, it kind of makes more sense to me, even though I played a lot of GURPS and enjoyed a lot of GURPS. It kind of makes more sense to use something like a D20 or a D percentile die, because then at least everybody understands as you move up and down, +4 or -2 or -3, no matter where you are on that particular scale, you're still subtracting or adding the same amount. Once you're rolling a 3d6, the percentage that you're changing, the percentage that you're changing is changing. If that makes sense. You're not constantly adding or subtracting flat amounts. And that makes it less intuitive, I think. Oh, Access Your Inner Light is here. Good morning, Inner Light. Yeah, you finally got to one of my favorites. Oh, so it might be you who recommended this one. I know this one has been recommended. It's come up a couple of times. So yes, finally here on this one. So this is one of Inner Light's favorites. So I was wondering if anybody around here has played one. So all right, here we go. Extended tests. When engaged in a protracted activity like a chase, a character must make 3 successful tests before they fail 3 tests to accomplish the overall action. The number of failures rolled before succeeding or successes rolled before failing can sometimes indicate how close things were. So you have to make 3 successful tests before 3 failed tests. Group tests. When a group of characters does something together, if at least half of them succeed, the entire group succeeds. This only applies to cases where one failure would otherwise doom the whole group, like sneaking into an enemy camp or climbing a mountain while roped together. I think there are other ways to handle group tests. I've been looking at that. It's like you need to know whether or not, does one failure doom the entire group? If so, the person with the least stats, instead of having everybody roll, the person with the least ability in the group should roll. Or is this a situation where if somebody is successful, they can cover for everybody else? When that person, in that case, the most skilled person should roll. Vladimir says, when you have 3d6 and this advantage and disadvantage, you still have the bell curve, but it leans on one side. I haven't really seen, though. So Vladimir says, when you have 3d6 and this advantage and disadvantage, you still have the bell curve, but it leans toward one side. Yeah, it leans, skews to one side or the other. If you're rolling like an additional one and taking the best or the worst. I don't really see that all that often, though, because you don't have that in GURPS. You don't have like an advantage mechanic in GURPS. Lynn says the D20 makes math easier for sure, but the die roll mechanics are a whole topic unto themselves. Well, yeah, and we've been through die roll mechanics on a whole bunch of videos in here. Vladimir, the distribution, I mean. Oh, Sable Phoenix says, by the way, I got Goodnight Sword delivered on Wednesday. Excellent, excellent. So, yes, I basically closed out the Goodnight Sword Kickstarter on Tuesday. I'm going to, I like to send out an email to people directly because I know that sometimes Kickstarter updates sometimes end in spam folders and stuff like that. So but I believe that at this point, everybody's Goodnight Swords should have been delivered. So I'll email everybody confirming that. But I put out an update. Was that yesterday or the day before that basically said that the Goodnight Sword Kickstarter is over. I've got another project that has to do with that. That had to do with the with Goodnight Sword. That it was the second conversation on Tales of Ravivania that I had on Tuesday. So more stuff coming. Thank you to everybody who was a part of that. That was fantastic. Inner Light says, I feel like this system is rules light enough to make it more about storytelling, and I'm using it for an RPG campaign based on the Dark Tower original board game. Oh. So search tests. When a group of characters searches an area, they automatically find clues, concealed or secret doors, hidden compartments, and so on. I talk a lot about that. We'll see if there's a time element in this. The GM may ask players to specify where they are searching, but players don't roll search tests in cases like these, unless the characters are in a hurry or you need to know who finds the thing first. This doesn't apply to hidden dangers like traps or foes waiting to spring an ambush. Oh, we have a failing forward mechanic. That was something we were going to talk about specifically. Lynn says, looks promising at first glance. I have no experience with the system, though. This is my first look at it. Yeah, please do like and subscribe, everybody. That would be great. So, failing forward, we were going to have a topic, a dedicated topic and discussion on this one day. We should still probably do that. Failing a test usually means the character fails to accomplish the action attempted, but not always. GMs are free to decide that a failed test means the action succeeds with an unintended complication or consequence. For example, a character who fails a test to pick a lock might open the lock but ruin their lock picks. This is always the GM's call. Of dice and men. From here on out, the dice are identified as DX, where X is the number of sides of the die. Okay, so basically, we know how to read dice. Statistics. So now we are into rolling characters. So that's how to play. So I guess that is all of our rules right there. Now there's going to be more combat stuff, but that's basically how to play. I like front loading that information. Roll stats. Characters have 6 stats: strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. Roll 2d6 plus 4 6 times and assign the totals to whatever stats you wish. 2d6 plus 4. For a more old school feel, assign that's kind of different. I don't see that very often. Assign the totals to the stats in the order they are rolled and swap one pair if you wish. If you prefer a more balanced point buy method, start with 8 in each stat and spend 18 points to increase your scores as desired, adding no more than 6 points to one stat. What is it? What is it that 2d6 plus 4 gives us? I'm going to go over to any dice. I'll put 2d6 plus 4. Calculate. All right, let me show you this. I wish I could load more than one screen at a time. So, all right, so 2d6 plus 4. There we go. So that one does, you can see our output here at the bottom. So that does cluster us right around 10, 11, 12. Well, 10, 11, 12. So we're kind of centered on, we are centered on 11 here. So you should have lots of 10s, 11s, and 12s with 9s and 13s appearing regularly, but you get pretty rare down at 14, 15, and 16, as well as 8, 7, and 6. So you can't. So that does mean that you're capping out at 16. So you can't have a natural 18. So you're starting with a 16, and you can't end up with a 5. I like that distribution. That seems like a pretty reasonable way to have a distribution, a character distribution. The class system. Let me stop that. Let me go back to my rule book. Innerlight says, the class system and magic system here are one of my favorites. Yeah, I'm still in the general how to play section. So numbers between 6 and 16, yes. Tomocrat says, yes, failing forward is something I've wanting to explore. It sounds like a good RP mechanic, but also feels like everybody gets a trophy idea. Yeah, it's pretty controversial, it seems like, in the RPG circles. Len says, it does put the average at 11. Oh, let me make sure I put that back up. It does put the average at 11, pretty much the same as 1d20, 2d10, or 3d6. But I guess you're going to have to fight for the 18. I think there is a translation to a new number, but I can't figure out if this is this game or a different one that I'm playing. Okay, choose a class. So BTA gives players 18 classes to choose from. Pick your class. We have warriors, archers, barbarians, captain, knight, nomad, soldier, rogues, assassin, bravo, native, pirate, scout, or thief. And magician is beast lord, druid, mystic, shaman, sorcerer, or warlock. Your class determines your hit die, which is used to calculate your hit points, the amount of damage you can sustain before succumbing to your injuries. It also determines what kind of armor you can wear and how much damage you can deal with weapons or your bare fists. Last, your class provides you with special abilities and starting equipment. BTA classes don't have saves. Instead, characters test their stats to avoid the effects of hazards, traps, spells, and other adversities. The stat used depends on the save being made, as explained below. Be mindful of the powerful opponent's rule when making these saves, because that was the disadvantage if there are 2 or more above you, 2 or more hit dice above your levels. This is also kind of, instead of an idea about your stats being defenses, we've talked about that quite a bit, like an AC based on your stats. Scroll down a bit. Fortitude save. Test the lesser of strength. Well, Lynn says a saving throw by any other name is still a saving throw. But here, well, I mean, I'm disagreeing that instead of having, for instance, what do we actually have here? Fortitude save, test the lesser of strength or con to resist diseases, drugs, poisons, and physical harm that cannot be dodged. Reflex save, test the lesser of dex and int to resist physical harm that can be dodged or avoided if sensed in time. Will save, test the lesser of wisdom or charisma to resist charms, illusions, and purely mental or magic effects. Like, an important thing is who rolls dice, because we've talked about that in relation to 5e. You know, sometimes the person who is acting rolls dice, and that seems to be a pretty good way to go to me. The person who's acting should roll dice. But sometimes when you do something like cast a spell, the other person resists. But that's because and that's pretty weird. Although some people have come up with a reason why, what the underlying rule is. But also in this game seems to be player facing. So if it's when you're not player facing, saves sometimes seem unintuitive, because if it's not player facing, then the player who is acting should make the roll. which means that the game master could make rolls. But if you are player facing, then your game master, I mean, your player, the actual players, the PCs, make basically a defense roll. Then something like a save makes more sense because, instead of the orc rolling to attack, you need to roll to save. So if the orc attacks you, I guess, I don't know if we have orcs in here, test against the lesser of dex or int to resist physical harm that can be dodged or avoided if sensed in time. So if the orc attacks, I guess you are rolling the lesser of dex or intelligence. Innerlight says there are a lot of alternative rules introduced in the supplement for this game, including PCs rolling all the dice and DMs rolling all the dice. How many games do we have when the DM rolls all of the dice? Flaws. Sword and sorcery heroes are far from perfect. If they wish, players can roll a d20 on flaws on the flaw table or simply pick or make one up a flaw for their character. This is entirely optional and is only to encourage roleplay. Oh, well, so we don't have any type of way we don't reward players for playing out a flaw here. I would have liked to have seen something else with there. I figured since flaw was on there on the character sheet, that was going to be more important than it was. Resolve. Pulp, sword, and sorcery heroes bend the world to their will. To support this idea, characters begin adventure with 3 points of resolve. Players can spend resolve at any time to do any of the following: re-roll a test or roll, recover from being defeated, recover from failing a fear test, cast an expended spell, roll normally, recover one hit die or one hit die of hit points, roll with advantage, attempt a nigh impossible feat, roll with disadvantage. Once per game session, a character who performs an especially cool, heroic, or otherwise thematically appropriate action can recover 1 point of spent resolve. This has no effect if the character hasn't spent resolve. So you're only going to get a maximum of 4 of these. Well, it says resolve is an optional mechanic that reflects the fact that pulp, sword, and sorcery heroes tend to be luckier and more competent than anyone has a right to be. However, nothing in the game hinges on resolve, so feel free to ignore it if it doesn't suit your group's preferred style of play. Yeah, Sable Phoenix says, I love how the saves are tested versus 2 stats. Lynn says, I guess Sorcerer makes more sense in the game. It does have like a dark sun kind of feel. Wizard has acquired some very Tolkien-esque connotations. As a DM, I would probably have given some kind of bonus for role-playing a flaw. Lynn says, honorable makes an interesting flaw. Ran a game once with a player who took that. It really restricts your actions if you role-play it right. Right, that GURPS talks about that when they talk about good disadvantages, because the reason it's a disadvantage is because of the restriction of action. Right. Experience. Adventurers learn in different ways, crushing their enemies, discovering lost treasures, exploring distant lands, learning secrets man was not meant to know, etc. Thus, the traditional experience system is completely discarded. Instead, characters gain a level after each game session, adventure, or narrative milestone. The GM determines which of these options applies to their game and can vary their selection over the course of a campaign so that advancement happens more quickly at the early levels or slows as the characters become more powerful. Whatever the case, this should be communicated to the players at the outset. You know, in something like the Rule Cyclopedia, so D&D, or Lamentations, I believe, or it could even be in Dungeon Crawl Classics. You know, I was thinking about the power levels and the leveling up. In the earlier stuff, there isn't a whole lot that you get. Gaining levels. Characters typically begin play at level 1 and can, over time, advance up to level 10. We've often said here that maybe level 10 is enough. When a character gains a level, the player rolls their hit die and increases their maximum hit points by the amount rolled. If you want sturdier characters, roll extra hit points with advantage. If you don't like rolling for hit points, use the average of the character's hit die. Additionally, at each new level, the player also tests each stat. A failed test increases the corresponding stat up by 1, up to a maximum of 18. Players are allowed to re-roll one unsuccessful attempt each time. Stats with a score of 15 or more cannot be increased until level 6. Ignore them until then. Okay, so I thought that you might be able to get up to 18 in some other way. So that's how. But you got to be at least level 6 to increase something above 15. So Raven the Barbarian just turned level 2, so she tests each of her stats. She fails her int, dex int, and wisdom tests. At least they're not going backwards like in Morkborg or Pirate Borg. Whereas if you succeed, or I guess if you succeeded or something's going backwards. She fails her dex int and wisdom tests, so these stats all increase by 1. She makes her strength, con, and charisma tests, so these stats remain the same. She re-rolls her strength test, but makes it again, so it remains unchanged. Sable Phoenix says, a lot of OSR and D&D spinoffs like Shadow of the Demon Lord only go to level 10. Have we looked at that one? Sable Phoenix says, love Shadow of the Demon Lord. Still one of my favorites. I don't think we have. Let me put that over here. Rolling to level individual stats is an interesting mechanic I haven't seen before. So many games out there. Well, that was basically what we've seen that in Mork Borg and its variants. But when we talked about like that with Pirate Borg, and I believe that's even the case in Mork Borg, your stats can decrease. You roll your stats and they can decrease. Which means they're going to, Lynn was talking about that, they're going to oscillate quite a bit. So at least in this way, we're only going up to level 10. Your stats can increase, but they don't decrease. Well, I suppose if you're hit by some kind of magic or something, they would decrease. But as a result of your level up, they're not going to decrease. If you don't like rolling for stat increases, select one of the following options at each new level. Increase 3 stats with a score of 9 or less by 1. B, increase 2 stats with scores of 12 or less by 1. Or C, increase 1 stat with a score of 13 up to or more by 1, up to a maximum of 18. As before, stats with a score of 15 or more cannot be increased until level 6. If you want characters to develop more special features over time, use the optional advancement rules in the hacks section. These rules allow characters to select new level features at levels 3, 5, 7, and 9. Okay, starting hit points based on con. Groups that prefer a more traditional game can instead use the maximum value for each class's hit die. Those who really want to go old school can roll their hit die and take whatever they get. Even so, roll with advantage at level 1. Hit die is the die used to determine hit points gained per level. Oh, you might want to review some of the Shadow of the Demon Lord before streaming it. It's not family friendly. I'll put an asterisk by that. Sable Phoenix says, yeah, when we looked at Pirate Borg was one of the first I've seen of that. That was this week, though, so I'm kind of lumping it all together. I like that the actual stat scores have meaning here, too. In D&D, once they've been reduced to a hash function that tell your character modifier, that you tell you your modifier for that stat. Yeah, I do. That's a legacy part of D&D, it seems like. I like the stats to actually have value as well. Well, like in Morkborg, it just says that once you use them to generate, you don't even put the stat numbers on your character sheet. They made that realization and were like, hey, okay, so we'll use that to generate a modifier, but then don't even worry about recording your stat after that. Okay, the number in parentheses is the average value rounded down. GMs may want to use this value as hit points gained per level to keep these increases consistent but not overpowering. Usable armor indicates the type of armor the character can use. If a character wearing armor or wielding a buckler or shield they can't use has disadvantage on strength tests, dex tests, and sorcery tests. Regardless of their armor proficiency, however, a character wearing medium or heavy armor always has disadvantage on tests to move quietly or swim. Attack damage. This is how much damage the character deals in ordinary physical combat. Some classes have special abilities that alter these numbers. And then special features. The class's special features are described next. Some features are static, while others develop as level increases. Starting equipment. Okay, so here's warriors. Here's what one's like. So the archer we see, starting hit points, con +2. Hit die D10. So you start with your constitution +2. And then in the future, we're going to be going up with a hit die of D10. Light, medium armor, bucklers, and shields. Attack damage D8 or D4 if unarmed. Is this the game? So we're talking about class-based damage here. And some that's been brought up before. So I guess that's this game then? Was that this game that people were talking about? Where damage is just based on class. It doesn't matter what bow you use or what weapon you use. Archers have disadvantage when testing wisdom to see things. Oh, no, have advantage when testing wisdom to see things over long distances or concealed by smoke, fog, camouflage, etc. Marksmanship. Archers deal +1 damage with bows and crossbows. This bonus stacks with that provided by the ranged specialist. This doesn't apply to one-handed crossbows if such weapons exist in the game world. Archers can perform 1 attack per round at odd levels. 1 at level 1, 2 at level 3. Archers can perform 1 attack per round per odd level. 1 at level 1. No, 2 at level 3. 3 at level 5, 4 at level 7, and 5 at level 9. Archers deal +1 damage with ranged weapons. And they have trick shot. Looks like I'm going to be using usage dice here as well. It's based on Black Hack, so I guess that makes sense. Frederick says, when people tell me they want crunch, I bust out Caltech's Warlock. You don't have to be a rocket scientist. It would certainly help, though. I don't know that one. Lynn says, I like games with lots of optional crunch that folds neatly out of the way when you don't want it or need it. The core mechanic should be simple and uncomplicated. A lot of the hack games, Frederick says, uses damage by class. I wonder if, so Black Hack may have done that too. Excuse me. So Barbarian. Con +2. Damage D8. I got the hiccups. Berserker. Barbarians step up their melee damage by 1 die type. So, also D8. I was looking for something, but when they go Berserk, they step up their damage by 1 die type to D10 or D6. 1 attack per round per odd level again. Once per day, they can instantly recover 1 die of hit points rolled with advantage. I do like the rolling with advantage there because when you... Okay, all right, get back to hit die 1. Okay. They can do this anytime, even in combat. They have advantage when rolling for natural healing when testing con to determine if they are wounded after a defeat. And advantage on all tests involving foraging, hunting, stalking, tracking, outdoor survival, and alertness. Captains are veteran soldiers who have risen through the ranks and know how to lead and motivate others, especially in battle. Once again, con +2. Hit die D10. That seems pretty standard. Also D8 and D4. but they have advantage when testing charisma to command, impress, inspire, or lead others, but not to use their special features. Once per day, captains can test charisma to heal all characters within closing range. 2 hit points times the captain's level. This is an action unless done immediately after defeating an enemy. Captains can do this 2 times per day at level 4 and 3 times at level 8. 1 attack per odd level. I guess that's a lot like just our warrior classes here. Or they can test charisma to grant all characters within closing range. Advantage on their next attack. This is an action unless done immediately after defeating an enemy. The knight, they are called cataphracts in the East. Same kind of deal here. +1 damage with melee weapons. Additional attacks as per our warrior, seems like. Shield Bash. When a knight rolls a 5, 10, 15, or 20 on a successful melee defense test, while armed with a buckler or shield, the attacker takes damage, or extra damage on a critical success equal to the character's level. Western Horsemanship. Knights have advantage on all tests involving horses, horsemanship, and mounted combat. Unlike other characters, knights don't suffer disadvantage when fighting mounted opponents while on foot. Good morning, TSL Frontman. Innerlight says, this system lets you make your own classes too, since all of these abilities have a point value that lets you select them for new classes. That might be pointed out in a supplement instead. Well, that's interesting. Nomad. Nomads are skilled riders and horse archers. Many roam the vast plains beyond the inland sea or serve in the mobile armies of the East. I think we're still on warrior, right? So, yeah, standard warrior stuff here, standard warrior stuff here. They get +1 with melee and ranged weapons. They have advantage on all tests involving horse, horsemanship, and mounted combat. That's kind of like the knight here. So we see, okay, I see how they're mixing things up. Kind of like Innerlight was just saying, hey, Robert, good morning. And then Woodcraft. So that one is kind of like a blend. Blend of barbarian, blend of knight. Soldier, also called mercenaries. These professional fighters include adventurers, brigands, gladiators, guards, sellswords, and actual soldiers. Advantage on initiative tests. +1 damage with melee weapons. Can perform 1 more attack around second wind. Or they get the second wind kind of like the barbarian. So we've got warrior type skills, and then they do mix them up. Depending on which ones you want. Rogues. All right, so hit points, we're just using our Constitution score now. And a D8. Yeah, so we're dropping down to D8. So this was D10 on the Warriors. Usable armor, light and bucklers. Attack damage, D6 or D3 if unarmed. Special features. Extra attacks. Assassins can perform extra attacks as they gain levels. They can perform 2 attacks per round at level 4 and 3 attacks at level 8. Finesse. Assassins armed with light melee weapons may test for dex instead of strength when making melee attacks and defenses. Poisons. Assassins begin every adventure with D6 usage of 2d6 damage poison. This goes up to 46 damage poison at level 4 and 66 damage poison at level 8. They also have advantage on int tests involving poisons. Skullduggery. Assassins have advantage when testing charisma to deceive others, whether through simple lies or complex deceptions, disguises, or forgeries. Stealth. Assassins have advantage on dex to avoid notice, hide, move quietly, etc. If they sneak up on an opponent, they may make a sneak attack that automatically hits and deals 1d6 points of damage per level. Thievery. They can find and disarm traps, climb sheer surfaces, pick locks, pickpockets, detect faint noises, eavesdrop on nearby conversations, etc. What is the Bravo? Bravo specialize in fighting with light weapons and little or no armor, which is common in warmer climes among nobles and sailors, So light and bucklers, so that's the same. So this is probably going to be what's going to be the same among all of our rogues here. Natives have... Oh, wait. Oh, so I was about to say, we changed up here. So this is the Bravo. Advantage on initiative tests. Reroll failed defense test, ranged defense test, or reflex save with advantage on the reroll. They can do this 2 times per day at level 4 and 3. I do like that they're generous with advantage here. Like, if you're supposed to be able to reroll this, because if this is what you're supposed to be able to do, reroll a failed melee defense test, ranged defense test, or reflex save with advantage on the reroll. You can do this 2 times per day at level 4 or whatever, because that allows you to probably be more likely that's going to happen. Oh, did ask the author. That's apparently 1d6 plus 1 damage per level, not 1d6 plus 1 damage per level. Look at the parentheses on the screens. I think I had interpreted it as the whole 1d6 plus 1 in parentheses. Trey says, I think if I were to run a game similar to this, I would either run Eyes Beyond the Torchlight or the Index Card RPG. Well, the Index Card RPG has been popular around here. Lynn says, I like what I'm seeing with this system. It feels like somebody put a whole lot of thought into making it coherent, user-friendly, and modular. I can't say that about a lot of other systems. I haven't heard of Eyes Beyond the Torchlight. I have not either. So Finesse Fighter we have here as well. Bravos deal +1 damage with melee weapons. Multiple attacks at odd levels. Riposte. When a Bravo rolls 5, 10, 15, or 20 on a successful melee defense test, the attacker takes damage equal to the character's level. Yeah, I can see how each one of these would have like a point value like we're talking about. Like, see, that's the kind of thing I talk about when we're talking about GURPS and how it's modular, but sometimes you want to stick a bunch of different things together and come up with a point value for those things overall. So that if each one of these has a point value, then yeah, building out your own type of class would be easy. Because, okay, I'm going to take this special ability, I'm going to take this special ability, I have a few more points left, I'm going to take this one and that one. So it's how I think I would have designed this with point values in the background, and then that would allow me to design the classes. But then later, if you just expose the point values to the players, then they can also begin to create other classes from there. Good morning, PH. Oh, we got another hack. The same author of the system also made There and Hack Again, which borrows a bit of the same modules from this system and applies it to heroic fantasy system instead of a sword and sorcery. Oh, There and Hack Again. Is it worth checking out? I thought we were coming to a close on the number of different games that we need to look at. So the natives. Natives are tribal hunters, trackers, and warriors who hail from wild lands like the untamed forest or west or the jungles of the south. Standard rogue here. Advantage on wisdom test to detect sound, smells, or imminent danger. +1 with melee weapons. 1 extra attack per round. This is advantage on tests to perform acrobatics when making reflex saves against traps, hazards, or falling damage. Stealth. Natives have advantage on stealth to test against notice, hide, move quietly, etc. Woodcraft. Natives have advantage on all tests involving foraging, hunting, stalking, tracking, outdoor survival, and alertness in the wild. Pirates or sailors. +1 with melee weapons, going up every odd level and number of attacks. Dex perform acrobatics when making saves against traps, hazards, or falling damage. Pantherish agility. Pirates get advantage on 1 defense test per round. So here's our seamanship right here. Pirates have advantage on all tests involving the sea, sailing, and seamanship. They also test charisma with advantage when dealing with merchants, pirates, sailors, and other seafaring folk. Pirates have advantage on dex checks to avoid notice, hide, move silently, to avoid notice, hide, move quietly, etc. Oh, and they get a sneak attack too. The succinct and specific class-based abilities feel a lot like Shadow Dark. Stray says, I liked Mecha Hack. Inner Light says, it's pretty good. I favor Sword and Sorcery, though. I know you do. Love the grid. Frederick says, an excellent team-building game. I have had a lot of fun recently playing Conrad's Fantasy Next Millennium. The updated version of the Game of Words plays best with 4 or more players. I don't know that one either. Trey says, as long as they keep writing new games, I will keep reading them and share the interesting things I find. Well, yeah, we were talking about, new stuff will be coming out, but I know there are a lot of games already out there, but we've covered a lot. So Scout D8 so that's our standard rogue here. Scouts can use ranged weapons to sneak attack distant opponents who are not aware of their presence. See stealth below. Unlike a normal sneak attack, this requires a ranged attack test rolled with advantage. Multiple attacks. Okay, advantage on dex to avoid notice, hide, move silently, etc. So they still get a basic sneak attack, but they also get the long-range sneak attack. Versatile for the scouts. Scouts have advantage in all tests in foraging, hunting, stalking, tracking, outdoor survival, and alertness in the wild. A thief. Experts at breaking into and stealing things. Most are outlaws, but a few are uncanny explorers or heroes to the downtrodden. Hey, Cronus Chiron. Inner Light says, I would look at the supplement for this one before looking at There and Hack Again. That way you can see how some of the rules evolved and changed. For one thing, There and Hack Again, there's a it's a rollover system. Huh. Thief. Okay, so once per day, a thief can automatically declare they know some obscure bit of information like how to read an ancient language, where to find the ruins of an antediluvian city, or answer to a riddle, etc. Extra attacks. Thieves can perform extra attacks as they gain levels, 2 per round at level 4. So everybody's getting more combat ability in this game. I don't see, we got, some of them have attack bonuses, but that's not huge because you can increase your attack bonus by increasing your stat, right? You're going to be increasing your stat. That's how your attack bonus might increase. So the number of attacks is increasing. Finesse fighter, so dex instead of strength. Nimble, advantage on dex, perform athletics. That one. Traps, hazards, and falling damage. Thieves have advantage on dex to avoid notice, hide, move quietly, etc. And they can find and disarm traps, climb sheer surfaces, pick locks, pickpockets, detect faint noises, eavesdrop on conversations, etc. And have advantage on all tests involving delicate tasks like these. Punk Soup says there's a lot of books, films, and TV shows, too, and we keep consuming. Tabletop RPGs are no different. Yep, it's true. A lot of criticism on the black hack system has been the roll under. People want to crit on 20 and not crit on 1. Well, then, so this just flat out said that you crit on a 20, right? So this is roll under, but it just says the critical success will be a 20 and the critical failure will be a 1. I suppose to avoid exactly that reason. Exactly that right there, that people, well, it doesn't really matter. It's the same math, but people want to be successful when they roll on a 20. So you can just swap that. That clever ability seems more like a magic user skill. I'm talking about this one right here with the thief that says they can automatically declare they know some obscure bit of information. That kind of goes to the knave kind of approach to this, and the thief as kind of scholar and tomb robber. Right, because attack should be strength or dex based as you increase those. Inner Light says, yeah, when I play this, I do crit on 1 and fail on 20. It does keep that more consistent. But I completely understand the people who want to continue to crit on a 20. They're going to be used to be rolling a 20 and making that, and that being good in Dungeons and Dragons if they're playing that. And they're like, oh, it's 20. No, wait, that's critical failure. That happened on one of my very first rolls when I was playing with a group in GURPS. It wasn't my roll. It was another player's roll. Yeah, like rolled an 18. It was like the very first roll of the entire session. And at first we played a few, but it was the very first roll. And we were actually playing the Shahagwan adventure. So I think Evil Tide is the first one. But we were playing it as a GURPS game. And so the very first thing that you do in that whole series of adventures is pull that sea elf out of the water and try to rescue her. Because you're on a ship, and then you see the sea elf who's in trouble, and you bring her on board the ship. And so she was brought on board the ship, and so one of the players wanted to roll first aid on her to try to help her out. Rolls 18, shouts with excitement, thinking that that's really good, except for that's critical failure in GURPS, and he killed her. So did not get information out from the sea elf. Oh, so Inner Light says you'll see the clever ability again in some of the magician classes. So Beast Lord. So now, okay, so you're still going on con. So we're not actually reducing the hit points here. Oh, and hit die is still D8 here. So we're in magician. So we didn't drop down between the wizards and the rogues. So that's interesting. No usable armor, D8 and D4. So they're not wimps. I was wondering if we were going to get con -2 or hit die as being D6 and like D6, D2 or something like that, but we don't. Special features. Beast Lords have advantage on wisdom tests to detect sound, smells, or imminent danger. Multiple attacks. Beast Lords can perform 1 attack per round per odd level. How are they handling magic? So natural magic. Beast Lords learn 1 magical practice at level 1, a second at level 4, and a third at level 8. They also learn 1 spell per odd level, chosen from among their practices. 1 spell per odd level. Thus, a level 10 Beast Lord will know 5 spells chosen from among up to 3 practices. Beast Lords may only learn the following practices: herbalism, natural magic, and transformation. You know, MERP and Rollmaster use spell lists. I thought that's where we were going. Like a practice being a spell list or something like that. I'm using these cool dragon eye dice, which has a dragon eye icon instead of 20. So it's easier to remember the crit fail is waking the dragon. Oh, nice. Well, the Beast Lord's a little bit special. Oh, I think some of the other classes do have the penalties you were expecting. Okay, let's see. Oh, yes. Okay, so it did. So the Beastmaster was special in that regard. It looked like all the rogues and warriors had the same upper stats up here. But here, druids are practitioners of natural magic who focus their arcane studies on living things and natural forces. They are sometimes called white wizards. Con -2 hit points, D6 hit points, and D4 or D2. So that does keep up the stats. So I guess that's a point value thing for the Beastmaster. It probably shifts the points around somehow. But that also probably makes sense because when you think, or Beast Lord here, because you can often think of Conan the Barbarian kind of style looking guy with a like panther or something with him. So druids can read ancient and arcane language and have advantage on int tests involving sorcery. Druids can always make will saves instead of fortitude saves or reflex saves when resisting magic and effects. Druids have spent their lives studying or traveling and thus have advantage on int tests involving lore of any kind. Sense magic, druids can test wisdom to sense the presence and power of magical beings, places, and items, including unseen spirits. White magic, druids learn 1 magical practice per odd level, starting at level 1. They also earn 2 spells per level, chosen among their practices. So this up here was 1 spell per level. Okay, so there, the Beast Lord was only 1 spell per level. 1 spell per odd level. Druids learn 2 spells per level. So we do have decreased physicality up here, but we're getting more magic than that. So we did start off with an odd magic user, or strange magic user. Druids may only learn the following practices: divination, herbalism, nature magic, physical laws, transformation, and transmutation. Mystic, trained to develop their minds and bodies from childhood, these ascetic monks can cast spells and perform incredible feats of athleticism. So they are con 8. So we do mix it up with the magicians quite a bit. D8 hit dice, because this is kind of like our monk, D6 or D6 if unarmed. See martial arts. Mystics deal armed damage even when unarmed. Mystics are unarmed or unarmored with light melee weapons may test dex instead of strength when making melee attacks or defenses, and they can perform 1 melee attack per round per odd level. Mystics wearing cestus or spiked gloves deal +1 damage per unarmed attack, but only if they use strength test to attack. I don't have the black hack, but I really like how it's doing classes. Well, check out if you have not gone through the black hack yet. We did look at black hack. That was a while back ago on the morning grind. But if you look up morning grind and black hack, we did look at the original black hack, and there were things that I liked about it. I'm still not sure about these usage dice, but I remember there being things that we liked about it. Sable Phoenix says, that said, reading White Hack with its essentially classless systems makes me wonder why I'd use this one if I want a flexible rules light OSR rules set. Or that shape-shifting race in a Lord of the Rings later movie. You're talking about Bjorn the Skin Changer? Spell lists. I used to like that idea, but I didn't like them in practice. GURPS Magic had a better solution, pre-Ars Magica. Ars Magica, an oldie but a goodie. Right, there's different levels of learning practices and spells, just like there are different levels of increasing number of attacks per level, attempting to avoid fighter-caster power imbalance. Sable Phoenix says, yeah, usage dice are a mechanic that I never have liked, no matter what variation I have seen of it so far. Let me go over... and remember exactly how we are doing this. Not black axe. Black sword hack. Usage dice are used to represent finite resources. This is from Black Sword Hack. When a resource is used, or once the combat is over for weapons, you roll the usage die. A result of 1 or 2 means it is downgraded to the next smallest die. And then I suppose once you roll a 1 or a 2 on the last die, when you roll a 1 or a 2 on a usage die when it's a D4, this means the resource is depleted. As a rule of thumb, the average number of uses for each usage die is as follows: 2 on a D4, 5 on a D6, 9 on a D8, 14 on a D10. Really? 20 on a D12? And 30 on a D20? Interesting. Frederick says the usage dice is great as a timer. I would skip the sorcery system after looking at the classes, Heath. You can see how the magicians are in practice. Okay. Let's see. Oh, here's shaman. So we got shaman here. The witches or witch doctors, these magicians gain power by making pacts with ancestors, nature spirits, or forces beyond mortal ken. So they must roll or select a flaw from the price of power table. They are con -2, hit dice d6. Once per day, shaman can ask their supernatural patron for one of the following boons. Grant the shaman or an ally advantage on a test or roll. 2, heal the shaman or an ally 4 times the shaman's hit points. Or 3, revive a defeated ally with no chance of their being wounded. They can do this 2 times per day at level 4 and 3 times per day at level 8. Will saves to resist magic spells and effects and fear of the supernatural. 1 magical practice per odd level starting at level 1, then 2 spells per level. Sense the presence of power in magical beings, including unseen senses. Sorcerer. Let's see. Arcane lore, corruption, empower spell. Sorcerers may suffer 1d6 points of damage before making a sorcery test to gain advantage on the roll. Sense magic. We got the Iron Will, sense magic, true sorcery. There are also 2 spells per level. Warlock. I do like the we got the 3 core class types here, but then a lot of variation inside. PH says, I would like to see a system like the game Magica for tabletop RPGs. The only interesting usage dice mechanic I can think of, Trey says, that I like is in a system like Lumen, where your dice over time wears down until you take a breath to show exhaustion. Taking a rest resets your dice. That sounds like you're using the dice that are being worn down for like your physical attributes. Now that could work. It's when you're like, how much oil do I have, for instance? Well, let's roll a usage die. I'm not sure how that's easier than just marking off a certain number of another torch or a bottle of oil or something like that. So ancient pacts, price of power table. Warlocks carry rune blades, ancient daggers, swords, or great swords. Pick one with demons bound into their blades. They may even begin with a pair of matching rune blades, although these paired weapons share 1 power accessible only when used together. So this is the price of power. So this looks like it's more has more game effect than the flaws. Most magic is unnatural and unwholesome. When playing a shaman, sorcerer, or warlock, you must roll d12 on the price of power table or simply pick or make up an arcane flaw for their character. These flaws often impose disadvantage on certain tests as determined by the game master. So those do have some effect. Well, like more awake at night than during the day. will make any sacrifice for magical power. So some of these are more role-playing related. Under the thumb of a powerful being or magician. Begins every adventure with 2 resolve instead. So rune blades +1 damage, but then also some other special power here. Let's look for the sorcery then, because now we're getting into equipment right here. So equipment and then combat, adventuring, sorcery. All right, let's go see what this is. There are 12 kinds of sorcery or practices: alchemy, divination, force, herbalism, mesmerism, natural magic, necromancy, physical flaws, summoning, telepathy, transformation, and transmutation. Magicians can only cast and learn spells from practices they know. A magician class and level determine how many practices and spells they know. These pay what you want SRDs like Lumen and Breathless would be great to dig into as well. I'm a backer of Stoneburner, which uses the Breathless system. Sable says, Trey says, actually, I may be thinking of Breathless. Too many games, LOL. Lumen and Breathless? I'll put those on the checkout. Okay, when a magician casts a spell, okay, so you only cast and learn spells from the practices you know. A magician's class and level determine how many practices they know and spells they know. So when a magician casts a spell, they must test one of their stats. This is a sorcery test. The spell's practice determines what stat or test as shown in the sorcery table. Remember the powerful opponent's rule when casting spells that damage, summon, or inflict unwanted effects on others. If the test succeeds, so I think that means if you are trying to cast on something that's 2 hit die above you, you have disadvantage. If the test succeeds, the spell takes effect. If not, the spell fails or is resisted. A critical success doubles the spell's effect, damage, duration, etc. A critical failure has varying results depending on the spell's practice. Okay, yeah. Add links to the Discord, the other RPG section. Yeah, that's a good place to put it. Tomocrat says, Forbidden Lands use the wear down die for resources. I guess it's based around usage dice in practice, but they aren't equipment based. Yeah, using it on somebody's strength or dex as they wear down, I can see that. I know, it's true. I feel the same way. Yeah, these are exciting times to be a gamer. It's everything. It's everything. There's so much of everything to consume. Like that. We live in a golden age of just about everything. It's like drinking from a fire hose. So many systems out there now. Sable feels the same way. If the test succeeds, the spell takes effect. If not, the spell... Okay, so we said that. Magicians can cast any spell they know as often as they wish. For each spell they know, so we're not doing mana or forgotten... We're not doing the Vancian magic here, Lynn. For every spell they know, the first cast per day is rolled with advantage, resisted with disadvantage. The second is rolled normally, and the rest are rolled with disadvantage or resisted with advantage. Once a magician fails a sorcery test, or a character resists a spell, the magician can't cast that spell again until they get a full night of rest, roughly 6 hours or so. So that's what we're doing here. By the time you get to the third, though, oh, and the rest, yeah, third or more, you have to roll with disadvantage. Magicians can also cast spells they don't know, provided those spells fall under their practices. They can cast 1 such spell per day per level. The sorcery test for an unknown spell is always rolled with disadvantage. So here is our practice, which I'm still taking is kind of like a list or it's a spell list of some kind. Sorcery test, and then a reflex that would be used against it. Or save that would be used against it. Characters roll saves when targeted by a spell. If they fail their save, so you're not doing both. Okay, that's true. You're not doing both. This says the first casting is rolled with advantage or resisted with disadvantage. The second is rolled normally. So if you've got a foe, you need to know how many spells that foe is cast per day when coming into an encounter. But you're not doing both. You're just picking the right one. Either you roll it with advantage or resist with disadvantage. Trey says, I'm trying to focus on games with innovations, not just OGL clones. It's the only way I can try to keep up. So you can cast spells you don't know, provided those spells are under your practices. They can cast one such spell per day per level. So there's a lot of different effects that you can create. Okay, spell effects. Characters roll saves when targeted by a spell. If they fail their save, the spell takes effect. This save used varies by the spell's practices, as shown on the sorcery table. Because spells can target characters as well as NPCs, most spell descriptions refer to subjects, a term that includes both. Spells that target multiple subjects affect them in order of hit die from the lowest to the highest. For example, if a group of 3 enemies who have 1, 2, and 3 hit dice are struck by a spell that affects only 2 of them, the spell will affect the first 2. The same applies to characters. When a spell targets multiple subjects, they must be in the same general area. If they are also incidental targets on the area, if there are also incidental targets in the area, the spell will affect any number of them as well. For instance, if a group of characters and enemies are engaged in melee, a spell that strikes 3 of those enemies will also strike 3 of the engaged characters. Saves still apply. Firing into melee, right? Tomocrat says, it's a new golden age. It's true. Feels like I'm back in the 80s and 90s with all the systems. Sable Phoenix says, that's why I'm finding weird stuff like Lacona, the creation of the mystery, and the girl from the Blue City, or the clay that woke. And that's why Stormburner and Breathless system caught my eye. It's doing something interesting in the horror-themed RPG space. Or at least suspense. Yeah, PH says, easy D6 magic is also great. You're a fire wizard. Okay, you can do pretty much whatever you can imagine with fire. You're only limited by creativity and dice. It's like being the Green Lantern. If a spell inflicts an amount of damage per level or includes another element that varies by level, this refers to the magician's level. Unless otherwise noted, magicians can dispel their spells at any time. A character under the effect of a spell that lasts 6 rounds or 6 rounds. A character under the effect of a spell that lasts 6 rounds or as long as the magician takes no other action can usually test one of their other stats as an action to break free of the spell. Okay, a character who is... Okay, so this is like as if you're being like hold person or something like that. Can usually test one of their stats as an action to break free of the spell. The GM determines which stat to test, but it often boils down to making another save. The GM may require a character to make a sorcery test every round to maintain such a spell if the subject is an enemy of equal to or greater hit dice. If the magician takes damage during the duration of the spell expires immediately. Some spells let magicians create, summon, or control NPCs. NPCs under a character's control are minions. Players roll tests for their minions using the default stat score of 10 plus half the minion's hit die. Also, use the minion's hit die for purposes of the powerful opponent's rule. Rituals. Magicians can also perform rituals, great and terrible magic. They can do almost anything. Most rituals are closely guarded secrets passed only to the select few. All require a great deal of preparation and may demand terrible sacrifices. I like rituals being something more like this. The little ritual tag in D&D 5e is kind of lame. Being purely narrative, rituals are left up to the GM. For the most part, rituals are the purview of NPCs and serve as plot devices for the game. When the characters are dealing with rituals, they're usually trying to prevent them from happening or to counter their spells. Okay, so next it looks like we get into the practices. So it looks like we need to spend another day with this by this axe I hack. So we'll do that for another day. So we'll start there by looking at stuff tomorrow. Now tonight, there's a lot of stuff that could be done, and I'm way behind. I kind of want to play a game tonight. I kind of want to play Hero Quest because I kind of cleaned up a little bit of this area over here where I can put the Hero Quest board back down on and play Hero Quest. I've got a bunch of other things I've got to do, but I feel like it's been so long since I've done a Friday night stream that I should probably, I kind of just want to do it. That doesn't give me a whole lot of time because I want to start that early. I tend to start the dinner and a board game streams early so that if it goes on for a while, I'm not staying up till like midnight or 1 o'clock trying to finish a game. So if I start it, I should start at about 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time. So that'd be in 7 hours. And I would need to start setting up for that game at about 5. So that only gives me about 6 hours before the game would begin. But I kind of want to do it. Must have minions. So I'm thinking about, and that the elf that I've got has got a lot of power. Is very well outfitted. He's very well outfitted. So I think that we'll do dinner and a board game tonight. And I still need to have an open house in the coffee shop to play games. I'm wondering if we can do that. I need to do that soon. But all right, so I'll put together a thumbnail for dinner and a board game tonight. We'll be doing the elf quest, elf solo quest tonight because I got to play games too. So, all right, everybody, I hope that you have had a good time today. I hope that you have a great rest of the day. I hope you'll join me tonight then for dinner and a board game. We will be playing Hero Quest, 6 o'clock tonight. And until then, everybody, have a wonderful day. Be creative, be constructive, and grind on. See you tonight and then in the morning. Later.